back, everybody, to this week's episode of the JSS podcast. I am your host, Byron Enriquez, the casual executive. Um, Today, we want to talk a little bit different approach at the conversation. I want to talk a little bit about some growth that we're doing here internally and kind of how that affects and what we're building, and kind of want to share some insights of as a business owner, as an entrepreneur, how we're at JSS, how we approach things and how we approach growth, which I think can be beneficial to a lot of business owners, a lot of entrepreneurs, and how you and how you grow and how you focus your attention and your span of influence, your span of reach in business. So the thing I wanted to kind of talk about today is one of the, we've made some announcements on our social media pages. JSS, we're kind of branching into another direction, not another direction, but another avenue of business within our ecosystem. So we're launching what we're calling JSS Closing Services. JSS Closing Services depends on the state you're in, escrow company, escrow services, title services that we'll get from the some of the major big title companies, but we're using that as an opportunity to integrate that into our existing ecosystem. So, kind of wanted to talk a little bit about that and how that applies to our vision, to our goals, to our ultimate plan for the business. But again, how that mentality and how we go about that. So hopefully that helps some of the business owners out there, or some entrepreneurs in your growth process. So the way we're looking at it is if you look at it, it's we as at JSS, we are creating a full ecosystem, right? Our approach has never been to build specific businesses. It's been to fill gaps and fill needs, or fill voids that we feel have been missing in this industry, right? When my wife and I had the vision for this company 7-8 years ago, give or take, we both had a long, extensive experience in mortgage and real estate, but we had seen a big gap in this marketplace where a lot of entrepreneurs, self-employed people, people who needed a little bit of extra care, a little extra, not because of the inexperience, but the opposite, maybe because they wanted to stay a little bit more private, or they had their needs for their type of transaction were a little bit beyond what your traditional kind of conventional mortgage space was. So we had the vision to create this JSS Financial, where was really the beginning of what we called, red carpet concierge service, right? Where we really can build something filling the needs of our consumer, of our client at the time, business leaders, CEOs of companies, people in high profile places where maybe they didn't want to have everything so public, and maybe wanted to be a little bit more private, wanted to not have to share so much information. So they got us thinking and growing, and based off some of the context we had, we were able to build this private network of lenders that we were able to finance some really out of the box types of transactions. And we've done some really cool stuff over the years. We've financed some deals in some beach cities, and we'll refinance in a couple of days. We've done a transaction up in the Bay Area, Silicon Valley, for somebody who was really up in the chain at one of the big social media networks that did not want to have his information out there when the property's closing, or same with banks. And we were able to finance, a $6-7 million purchase, very, very privately. So again, we were able to do some cool stuff, and it got us really, really going. One of the things that we expanded from there was seeing the need of a lot of our investors that were clients of ours, and disposing of real estate or acquiring more real estate. Again, some of our investors who were funding our loans, needed help sometimes disposing of an asset that either they foreclosed or just accumulated over the years. So that's where that need for JSS real estate really came about. Where again, we were like, what, we're not your typical real estate company. We're not out there, putting signs out there on billboards, and we're not bus benches promoting ourselves. But we are a full service real estate company here in California, where we can really meet the needs of our specific clients, the clients that need that concierge red carpet level service, where again, we're doing things at a different level, private. We're not sharing a lot of information. A lot of information doesn't go public about those deals. And all of that, with the need again came about where we were, handling these large amounts of funds for investors funding our loans, and that's where JSS Capital was birthed from, right? Where again, we're already have the loan transactions, we have the real estate transactions. We just needed a place for our investors to be able to park their money, so we can lend it out, invest for them, make a good solid return without them having to go chase the deals. Again, not it wasn't an approach of saying, hey, we want to build this business. It was just what something has organically has grown from the needs that we've been experiencing, right? Needs that we're seeing in the marketplace, the voids that we're seeing, and to kind of continue on that adventure or that road. Now we're incorporating JSS closing services again. Meaning what we're trying to do is we're really focused on bringing that attention to detail, attention to service that we can control, right? And if we don't have to farm out certain things, and again, and with closing services, with escrow and title, we're dealing with outside third-party companies where, and not to fault of them, they're managing their business the way they see fit and the way they do things. But some of our clients require that extra level of attention, require things to be done a little bit quicker, require things to be done, at that elevated level. And the only way we saw the opportunity to be able to do so is to bring that in house, right? So now it really creates this flywheel of business. This really creates this ecosystem where we can at JSS, we can really, take control and give that service that to the whole transaction, meaning whether you need a loan, whether you need to dispose of an asset, find an asset. We have investors funding deals with us in house, but now we can also do the closing where we can manage escrow, we can handle title. There's still some outside services that we still have to farm out, insurance, which again, we're not licensed insurance agents, so we're not going that route. When we're utilizing some relationships that we have. But really, the approach was, again, to create this flywheel where the business kind of feeds each other. We have an investor that brings in money into our fund. We go out and lend it. If we can acquire and help them acquire the real estate, we do so. We close in house, and then it just continues, right? And it continues and it continues. So that's kind of how I wanted to approach and kind of talk about a little bit about the mindset of a business owner and entrepreneur, and and how you approach your business. It's not about diversifying, and yes, there is a need to diversify in investments and in every things you do, and we have other things that we do here with us as well. But I think to us, what was important, it was more to create something that was integrated. There was different revenue streams, different avenues of business that feed off of each other and integrate into one, right? So, you may see it as different businesses. We don't, right? It's a different silo, if you will. But they are all integrated into the same integrated business model, the same service model, the same concierge level service that we're looking at to provide to our clients. But again, it's the approach, right? Where some people say, I want to diversify, and they want to do this and they want to do that, and then they get spread out too thin when they're, what's that saying? Where you're a master of none because you're trying to please everybody and you're trying to do too many things. Where our approach has been, yes, we have our hands in different pots, but it's all the same big pot, if that makes any sense, right? Where ultimately we are feeding ourselves with different lines of business, and everything is kind of fueling each other, right? Where it creates this seamless path for our clients, where they're not seeing the handoffs from one entity to another, but it's going through the ecosystem where, again, the client isn't seeing necessarily the handoff from JSS Financial to JSS Capital to JSS Real Estate to JSS Closing, right? It's all been done, and they're dealing with one person. They're dealing with the same kind of group internally, but it's just all being handled meticulously. It's just being handled at a different level of service. That's one of the reasons why we've done some branding consolidation in the last few months as well, with some websites, and we've created the brand of JSS Global, which is all encompassing, where from there you can kind of see how everything feeds off of each other. And it's still a work in progress, and it's something that we've been putting a lot of time and effort and resources into, because it's ultimately, that's the goal, right? That's where we're trying to get to. We're trying to do something a little bit different. And one of the things that people all constantly ask me, I've been away for the last week or so, talking to different people, and as I go to conferences, people always ask, like, what is it that you guys do? What is it that you guys stand for? And to me, it's that, right? And it's, to me, it's that attention to detail. It's that I don't want to be like everybody else. We're trying to do something different. That people always ask, what's your value proposition, or what sets you apart? What makes somebody want to do business with JSS as opposed to any other hard money private money lender out there? And from the beginning, when we set out to build this, it was always something where we want to give high level service, where, a lot of our quote unquote competition is, and I don't mean it in an insultive way to insult our competition, because a lot of them are friends of mine, but it's a little bit sloppy, right? There's a lot of guys out there who, aren't trying to present themselves at that higher level. We've always approached it with the guise of, hey, you know what? It's like if you're dealing with, the bigger banks, huge financial institutions, right? We have the emails, we have the websites, we have the client portals, and we have all the safety features in place. We have all the security measures that a big, large organization does, and obviously at a smaller scale. But we want you to feel that you're dealing with a very professional organization, as opposed to just some fly-by-night entity that, could be here today, gone tomorrow, and you don't even know where your payments are being made to. With us, it's, you get your monthly statements, you're making payments online. Our investors can log into their portal and see how their investments are doing, see their portfolio, and it goes from there, right? So to us, that's always been the drive, right? To create that, to build that, and that's taking building systems, and, a lot of the things that I've talked about in previous episodes, right? Creating systems in place, creating an order of how you do things, because if you don't start, even when you're small and you're not starting correctly, that it makes it very hard to grow and to scale into something. In the last few years, we've been focused on growing and scaling, and mainly creating those systems where, we're poised to make some bigger jumps in the future, where we're getting to the places where we can start taking those next steps to really get out there. But for me, it had always been very, very important to don't grow faster than we can keep up with, right? So laying the foundation, even if it's taken longer, even if it's taking years to build those proper foundations, so that when we do take those next steps, we're not going to fall flat. I'm big of the opinion that, you get that one chance, one opportunity to make make something happen, and to make a good impression. One of the things that I know, and it really made me think. One of the times we started JSS Financial, and we had been growing, and we had been doing some stuff, and we had been consistent. But we were just a typical brokers at the time, doing business, and we were doing well. And then we had been working on some marketing stuff and thinking about it. And one day I said, you know what, I'm going to take that leap. And we put out these big marketing campaigns, and we started doing some stuff in social media and emailing and different forms to really get out there. And we did that. And I remember the day that I woke up, and it was like I was actually driving my wife. We were actually going away for the weekend, but it was like a Thursday or Friday before, and we were driving out to the place where we were going to stay. And from the drive that took maybe an hour and a half to 2 hours to get to our destination, I received, I forgot what the number was. I think it was like 150 to 175 new client requests, all in the matter of that span of that drive, all on my email, due to a new marketing campaign we had done. And it really got me. And I was like, oh my God, we do have something here. We have something different, something unique that we need to nurture, and we really, when that happened, we tried it a couple times, and we kept getting the same results. And we you know, purposely scaled back a little bit because we could not handle that volume, right? And again, I wanted to make a good impression because I felt, if we fall flat on our face with these people, we're not going to get that chance again. Right. So it was super important to do things properly, to do things right, create the right systems, create the right infrastructure, right technology, the right pieces, the AI pieces that we work with, start using all those tools, the call centers that we have outsourced, technology, systems, CRMs, right? And I think, one of the things I was talking to a friend of mine who's in a whole different type of business, but I was telling him, it's one of the terms that you hear a lot right now is it's about your tech stack. What softwares do you have? And ideally, you want to build something where these softwares talk to each other, or it's seamless from one to the next, from your marketing platform to your CRM, to your intake system, to your execution, to follow up after the sale. And it's that sales funnel that I've always taught people how to create it, how to fill up the funnel. But once it gets in that funnel, how do you maneuver it through, and making sure you have systems in place to be able to do so? And there's been a lot of growth, and we've tried things, and things have worked, and some things have not worked. Because again, we're not a huge operation where we can just bring in a ton of people, and it's all been very meticulous, and uh, with cost in mind and budgets. Right. So, again, and I say all this stuff not to flatter ourselves by any means, right? I'm trying to give some guidance. I'm trying to give some knowledge on approach, right? Real life approaches of how we've done things, where hopefully you can, as a business owner, as an entrepreneur, somebody who's looking to invest, either looking at us and say, hey, I need some help, and I need some guidance to be able to where to invest and how to buy real estate, and you can utilize our services, of course. But also, as somebody, as a business owner, somebody who is just looking to start a business, who's thinking, how do I grow, or how do I do this? I have a good idea. How do I take that next step? That's one of the things, in my past life, I've done consulting for businesses. And one of the things that we've always would talk about is that is being able, to take that idea and create the steps to get you to the place, right? We would always do these analysis of I'm not going to bore people, SWOT analysis and different things that I've done in my businesses, but in my consulting practices, where where are you? Where do you want to go? And then how are you going to get there? Right. And being able to write those things down, it gives you that roadmap and that guide to give you to execute. A lot of people have great ideas and say, hey, I want to do this. I want to open a restaurant, or I want, have a gardening service. To me, they're all the same, right? The mentality and the approach is the same to whatever widget you're out there selling, right? But it's being able to create that model and that business model of taking those steps and to guide you in that process, right? So again, that's what I wanted to kind of share in that aspect of it, but for JSS, it's been about that, building that ecosystem of what we believe, the culture of how we want to treat our clients, how we want to represent ourselves, the reputation that we want to put out there, the accountability, that we want, and we've learned from our mistakes. We've made a lot of errors. We've tried different softwares. We've spent money, money that we won't get back, but it was opportunities that I think we've learned from, to seeing, yes, this works for us. This doesn't work. We've, try to bring in partners, try to bring in this, we've had a lot of situations where again, not everything works, but we've taken some risks, and we've allowed for that to happen, all while maintaining, you know, current business flow and revenue flow to be able to fund our operations, obviously. But again, allotting time for that. One of the things as a consultant that I've always used to talk to people about is working in the business and working on the business, right? And there's two separate approaches. And again, it's a common phrase and people talk about it a lot, but it's, are you creating a job for yourself where if you're not doing this particular task, there is no business? Or are you building a business where ultimately at some point you can find a way to distance yourself and the business can continue without you, right? And again, two different mindsets, two different approaches, but you have to allow time for both, right? Sometimes your business, working in the business, is that grind, that 9 to 5, where you're working every single day to your clients and doing loans or doing real estate or doing plumbing or electrical, whatever it is that is in your business. But then you have to give yourself time to give that elevated view of the business and where we're trying to go, right? What are the things that we need to put in place in the next 6 months, 12 months, 2 years, to be able to provide that distance from me as a business owner? What do I need to do? What do I need to grow? Who I need to bring in? Hiring smart, trusting people to be able to take over tasks. Those are all super hard to do, right? I struggle with that constantly as the type A personality that I am, where I want to control every aspect of it. Learning to do so, and here in house, we're getting to the point where it's like, some of the goals for the next 6 months is we want to start hiring now. Finally, we're at a place where I need to hire salespeople around the country, build sales teams to do real estate, to be able to do mortgage, to bring in investor capital, and closing services, right? We're working on some external licenses for multiple different states to be able to do title services nationwide, to be able to do closing services nationwide. So we're getting to the spot where, okay, our infrastructure is set. How do we take that next step and grow, right? And now we can duplicate and replicate the things we've already done. And that's the strategy behind the business and how you approach your growth and what you need to do to evolve and continue going in that right direction, right? So again, today just wanted to give some more practical situations where this is what we're doing. This is how I approach it, and how we focus on solving real problems that come up every day, how we focus on delivering that value that we hold ourselves to, right? And because if you cannot deliver that value on a small scale, how do you expect to do it on a big scale? And everybody wants to do grandiose big things, myself included. We're like, I want to be the number one lender. I want to be the number one top producing agent in my county, in my city, and everywhere. But in order to do so, you need to have that foundation and that framework, because those, in order to do that, it's relationships, it's being able to be accountable, it's being able to protect your reputation. You need to stay adaptable. You need to be able to move. There's a lot of things that go with that. But being able to analyze that and be able to take a step back and look at it, I think it's an important. It's really, really important to be able to feed yourself and be able to grow, because that's how you will grow your business. That's how you will, building that wealth that you're trying to do. That's how you will build, to be able to grow your brand and who you want to be. Again, you have to think long term, but not forgetting those short-term steps that need to be taken to get to that final destination, without just focusing on that final destination, is working on those small things. I have, if I turn the camera around, there's a whiteboard where I'm constantly writing, and I have my goals, and I have different smaller steps that I'm trying to do in each thing. And there's a to-do list that goes off of that. And those are my focuses daily. And sometimes I don't look at that board for weeks or months at a time because I'm focused on transactions and doing things in the business. but it's always, top of mind, and it's always literally right in my face, because that's what I stare at every day. And it's just literally top of mind of what I need to reset and come back to, and continuously keep coming back to, because that's what, at my age, I've been doing this a long time, and, I need to start thinking about my quote unquote exit, right? What's the exit? What's the goal, is to be able to build something that I can leave behind without, I'm not saying necessarily step away from, but build an ecosystem where, filled in with the right pieces, can continuously feed each other, and feed business to one another, growing this flywheel, and just continuously grow on this flywheel. Again, just wanted to share a little bit about where we are, what we've been working on. This podcast being part of that, is part of my expression, part of me being able to share some of the stuff, being able to add some faces to the names, as we go out there and really put our name out there a little bit more. I want people to get to know me, and where I come from, and what I'm trying to accomplish, to build this, so that, if it's the right fit, and it's people that if we're the people that you like to work with, we can expand on that and grow, and, again, do some hiring, and clients investing with us, and as we go out there in a more national stage, set that foundation of who we are, so that, it keeps us honest, keeps us accountable of our ultimate vision and our dream, for JSS and our family of companies, just creating this global network, just to do things a little bit different than the rest, do things a little bit at a different scale, not like the rest. We're trying to be different, and set ourselves apart. So again, hope I brought a little bit of value, and hope you can take some of those tools. And if you have questions, specific topics that saying, hey, look, this is a problem I'm running across, give us a shout. But, ask it in the comments. We'd love to answer it, and if we can make an episode out of it, or bring you on and ask some questions. I love that opportunity to be able to help some people out. So again, thank you guys, and we'll see you guys next episode.